Hello, my name is Ainsley Latour. I'm one of the co-founders of Idea STEM, and together with the University of Toronto, I'm very pleased to introduce this session for our virtual symposium around supporting learners with disabilities in STEM learning. And this particular session that I'm introducing today is going to be presented by Dr. Emily Moore and her team around accessible interactive simulations for inclusive STEM learning. So in this session, Dr. Emily Moore introduces teachers to the PhET Interactive Simulations project. And this started in 2002. And perhaps the richest resource for teachers out of this project is that the project's website contains over 150 free science and mathematics simulations. And those simulations are available in over 90 languages. So in addition to those simulations, the PhET project also includes research around educational technology, STEM learning, and accessibility. In fact, in 2014, the project started making these simulations accessible to students with disabilities. Importantly, especially in a world where a lot of teaching and learning is happening virtually or in a combined virtual and face-to-face scenario, these simulations are available across a variety of devices and platforms. So through this session, we are going to see some examples of simulations within the PhET project, and we're going to learn about some of the additional resources in that project that are available to STEM educators and that we definitely encourage you to check out. So some of these resources include a community that STEM teachers and educators can access, and that is a network of over 5,000 teachers. There's classroom activities, there's facilitation guides, there's tips, and there's a few other things as well which may be of interest. Because the PhET project is also a research project, there may also be opportunities for people to participate in research and they would get paid for it. And those people who participate in their research projects are all ages, without disabilities, with disabilities, all kinds of intersecting identities. So if this is something you think would be useful in your classroom or you're just curious, I think this is a fantastic resource. And I really do encourage you to go to the website, check them out, and start a conversation with either Dr. Emily Moore, the PhET team, or any of your colleagues. We hope you enjoy the session. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Emily Moore. I'm the Director of Research and Accessibility at the PhET Interactive Simulations Project at the University of Colorado in Boulder. The title of this presentation is Accessible Interactive Simulations for Inclusive STEM Learning. So I'm going to be talking about our efforts and progress in expanding features for the PhET simulations to make them more accessible and to create more opportunities for inclusive learning. The PhET project started in 2002. We were first the Physics Education Technology Project, which became the acronym PhET, P-H-E-T, with the PH from the word physics. Over time, we have grown to include more disciplines beyond physics, and so we dropped PhET as an acronym, and now our name is just PhET Interactive Simulations. We are best known for our website, which includes over 150 interactive science and math simulations, or SIMs, as I will often call them. These SIMs are used over 100 million times per year around the world and are available in over 90 languages. Each SIM is a free, flexible, exploratory learning tool, and in just a moment, I will demonstrate one for you. In addition to the simulations, we are also a research project known for developing a unique design approach and for our research in education technology, STEM learning, and accessibility. I'm going to demonstrate one of our SIMs, Jantra Voltage. Jantra voltage is about static electricity. It provides a way for learners to explore transfer of charges, attraction, repulsion, and grounding. When the sim opens, you see a man, John, standing in a room on a rug next to a door. His leg and his arm are interactive. I can rub his foot on the rug and move his arm closer or further from the doorknob. As I rub his foot on the rug, I hear his foot rubbing, and I notice charges, shown as blue spheres that appear with a pop, transfer from the rug onto John's body. As I move John's arm, I can move it closer to the doorknob and John can get zapped as the charge is discharged from John's body. I can play around with transferring even more charge on John's body and investigate how that impacts how close or far his hand needs to be from the doorknob before he gets zapped. So I just walked you through this in a very straightforward way, but as you might guess, learners can take many different pathways and explore many different questions that come up as they try to make sense of the behaviors and relationships in this sim. Here are some of the common design features you'll find in all PhET sims. They are highly interactive. You learn with them through interacting with them. They provide real-time feedback, allow difficult or impossible actions, include multiple representations, are intuitive to use, and implicitly scaffold inquiry. The design of the sim itself supports learners in understanding what to do and what to pay attention to as they interact. So you can find this simulation and many more at our website. Our website is phet.colorado.edu. That's PHET at colorado.edu. All of our resources are free, and each sim has its own sim webpage, and on that page you can find text and video facilitation guides, including teacher tips, a sim primer video, and for mini sims, a sim features video, as well as classroom activities created by us PhET folks and submitted by teachers around the world. You'll also find on each sim's webpage all of the translated versions of that sim. From the start of the PhET project in 2002, we have been committed to the mission to make math and science learning more accessible to learners around the world. In the early days of PhET, that meant making the sims interoperable so that they can be accessed on as many devices as possible, desktops and eventually laptops and mobile devices and across platforms. Then we added the ability to translate the text that's visually displayed and provide offline access so that you didn't have to speak English or have internet access to use the sims. And we also always designed the sims to be able to be used within different curricula, across age groups, and in different learning contexts, using different teaching methods. PhET sims are used from kindergarten through college, in the classroom remotely, embedded in a lecture as part of class or student group activity, within homework assignments, embedded in learning management systems, and many more. In 2014, I began leading a project to address challenges of access, in particular for learners with disabilities. At that time, PhET sim supported only more traditional input, mouse, touch, and trackpad. The emphasis was on the visual display. There was little to no auditory display in any sims prior to 2014. Because of this, the sims were not accessible non-visually, and they weren't yet taking advantage of the many new and alternative input methods. So in my work since 2014, we've been expanding the different input and display opportunities possible for the PhET sims using existing web technologies and common computing devices. I have been with PhET for over 10 years, and 6 years ago I began leading PhET's Accessibility Initiative, which has since grown into a team of folks dedicated to the design, implementation, and research of multimodal features, meaning different modes of display and input for interactive learning tools. My team's mission is to create the most enjoyable, inclusive learning experiences available at scale. The way we do that, the pathway we work through, and the medium we work with, is through creating accessible STEM simulations. We use a process of inclusive co-design to create new features, which we implement in the simulations at scale, so they're available to all, and we do that involving a diverse team of in-house experts, that's my wonderful team, and many collaborators. A few things I'd like to point out about our process of inclusive co-design. First, we see disability as a mismatch between a person and their environment. That means we consider it as a design challenge. We seek one-size-fits-one solutions, so our goal is flexibility so that each simulation can be adapted to meet the needs of the teacher, learner, or learners making use of the tool in the moment. So the outcome is an inclusive technology. And we design through diverse collaboration. Our process embraces diversity and includes participation by teachers and learners with a broad diversity of needs. And we think about scale in multiple ways. We envision, design, develop, study, and publish new multimodal features for accessible and inclusive PhET sims for use on a global scale. And we also develop design practices and associated learning materials to share these practices through things like online courses such as MOOCs. We conduct and publish academic research in STEM education, accessibility, and computer science to share widely the knowledge we're developing. In our software development, we follow web accessibility standards to be compatible with many assistive technologies, and when needed, we further develop software architectures within our open source code base so that others can take up not only the SIMs, but also our design practices and our software code to create their own accessible interactives. And all of this is high quality, free, openly licensed for use by everyone. And we do this through the efforts of my team of 8 people, which includes experts in software development, web accessibility, STEM education, linguistics, music, and many other things, as well as collaborations with the Inclusive Design Research Center at OCAD University in Canada, people at Georgia Tech, including Carrie Bruce, and the Sonification Lab, led by Bruce Walker, and the Chrome Lab at St. Louis University, led by Jenna Gorlowitz, and the Embodied Design Research Lab at UC Berkeley, led by Dora Abramson. We also partner with multiple consultants that bring expertise in assistive technologies, and we partner with a number of schools and outreach programs through which we do some of our co-design work. Okay, so now I've told you about PhET as a whole and our accessibility initiative. So what are these multimodal, accessible, inclusive features that I've alluded to? Well, what we've been working hard at for the past 6 years is developing new display features, which includes auditory display, visual display, and haptic display, as well as expanding the input capabilities of simulations, how learners interact with the Sims. I'll talk through each of these briefly and then show you some examples of what you can do with these features in different combinations, as well as let you know what is available to you to use right now from our website and what's in development and will be available soon. Let's start with auditory display. This includes everything you could potentially hear from a simulation. We developed non-speech auditory display that includes sound effects and sonification. Sonification is where sounds, like musical tones, are mapped to the SIM's underlying model so the sound can provide information to the learner. So a musical tone might change in pitch as a variable is increased or decreased. That's non-speech auditory display, but we also have developed a way to provide speech display that describes what's happening in the sim as it happens. One variant of this we call interactive description, which is description provided through screen reader software as learners navigate and use the sim. Interactive description allows for completely non-visual access to the sims that have this feature. Building on interactive description, we can use that description to create simulations that are self-voicing. So simulations that provide description of what's occurring without using screen reader software. This description, self-voicing description, is provided directly through the browser, so you don't have to know how to use a screen reader to make use of this description. This feature makes description available for use by those with and without visual impairments and could benefit students with learning disabilities, cognitive impairments, or anyone who enjoys auditory display. Next, we have visual display features. PhET has, over the past 20 years, refined our approach to visual design, but in my work we have developed pan and zoom capabilities and also implemented a way to allow users to select if they want to view a focus highlight or not on objects as they're interacting. Focus highlights are very important if you're navigating by alternative input methods, but some of the work we have done also allows those using mouse or touch input to be able to opt into seeing these focus highlights as well. Pan and zoom capabilities and always visible focus highlights can benefit learners with low vision and anyone using a sim on a small mobile device. For haptic display, we have been working on vibratory haptics on mobile devices, learning how vibrations can support learners with and without visual impairments and understanding what's on screen and what's happening during interaction. In a vibratory haptics enhanced John's voltage, using your mobile phone, you can feel vibrations as charges transfer onto John's body, and when those charges discharge, shocking John. And now we're to alternative input. We've expanded our open source code base to now support traditional alternative input, things like keyboard and switch devices, as well as the use of mobile voiceover, which is a screen reader software to control custom objects. If you're familiar with screen reader software, this feature enables unusual objects like four-way draggable objects that we have in PhET-Sims to be accessed through an iPhone using the native screen reader. And we're also currently researching the use of alternative gesture input and custom tangible input, and I'll talk more about these a bit later in the presentation and give you some examples, which will help you make better sense of what these are. So each of these features comes with their own strengths as part of a learning tool and their own limitations and challenges, as well as unique design, research, and implementation structures and communities. I'd be happy to talk with anyone interested about any of these in particular, but to understand the true power of having these features in interactive learning tools, I like to demonstrate them in combinations. So what I'm going to now is walk you through 3 examples. One highlights the use of features we have the longest experience with and the most simulations published with. The next highlights some of our newer features, and the last example is about our newest avenues of research. And while we don't have any sims published with this last example set of features, I share it here because I think it helps indicate what we're moving towards and the vision of inclusive learning tools that we have and are trying to bring into being. So as you go about your work as educators, I hope that with our first example, you're able to make use of these sorts of features in your classroom right now. And as we get towards the later examples, that these sorts of ideas can help inform what you imagine for your classroom and your learners and what you advocate for and come to expect from creators of educational technologies. So in my first example, we have interactive descriptions, traditional alternative inputs. I'm going to use my keyboard to interact. And we'll also have sound effects and sonification. With these features, the result is non-visual access with common screen reader software. As part of our design and publication process, we test with NVDA, VoiceOver, and JAWS. I'm going to demonstrate this combination of features using the sim Ohm's Law. In this sim, there's an interactive equation and circuit. This sim allows you to investigate relationships between current, voltage, and resistance in a circuit. I'm going to first navigate through the sim using a screen reader as you might navigate through a web page. And we'll hear a brief description of the sim. It's about 150 words. I'll let you listen in.
Heading Level 1 Ohm's Law. Ohm's Law is an interactive sim. It changes as you play with it. It has a play area and a control area. In the play area you find the equation for Ohm's Law, V equals I times R, and a circuit. Voltage and resistance sliders allow changes to the equation and circuit. In the control area, a button allows users to reset the sim. Right now, list with 3 items. Bullet voltage, V, is 4.5 volts. Bullet resistance, R, is 500 ohms. Bullet current, I, is 9.0 milliamps. Out of list. Look for voltage and resistance sliders to play, or read on for details about equation and circuit. If needed, check out keyboard shortcuts under sim resources. Heading Level 2 Play Area. Heading Level 3 Ohm's Law equation. Voltage, V, is equal to current, I, times resistance, R. In equation, letter V is much larger than letter I and comparable to letter R. Heading Level 3 The circuit. A pair of wires connect a resistor to a series of batteries. In circuit, list with 3 items. Bullet battery supply 4.5 volts. Bullet resistor shows a medium amount of impurities. Bullet very small arrows indicate a current flowing clockwise at 9.0 milliamps. Out of list. Heading Level 3 Slider controls. Voltage and resistance sliders allow changes to equation and circuit.
From that description, which someone using a screen reader could listen to in full, or jump around, or skip entirely, we get a quick summary of what's on screen and available, and an interaction hint for where to start with the sliders. And then as the description went on, we heard more about the current state of the equation and circuit. Now let's interact with the sliders and find out what happens.
Voltage slider 4.5 volts.
Notice how we learned that we're on the voltage slider and what its current value is. Let's move the slider and find out what changes.
5.4 volts. As letter V grows, letter I grows. Current now 10.8 milliamps.
Notice how we hear the change in the voltage value and also the resulting outcome for the equation. Let's keep interacting with the slider and the resistance slider.
6.3 volts. As letter V grows, letter I grows. Current now 12.6 milliamps. 7.2 volts. As letter V grows, letter I grows. Current now 14.4 milliamps. 8.1 volts. As letter V grows, letter I grows. Current now 16.2 milliamps. 9 volts. As letter V grows, letter I grows. Current now 18.0 milliamps. R, resistance slider 500 ohms. 401 ohms. As letter R shrinks, letter I grows. Current now 22.4 milliamps. 302 ohms. As letter R shrinks, letter I grows. Current now 29.8 milliamps. 203 ohms. As letter R shrinks, letter I grows. Current now 44.3 milliamps. 104 ohms. As letter R shrinks, letter I grows. Current now 86.5 milliamps. 10 ohms. As letter R shrinks, letter I grows a lot. Current now 900.0 milliamps.
And there, we found that at the maximum voltage and minimum resistance, the current becomes huge. If we navigated back to the descriptions we heard initially, they would tell us about the current state of the simulation as it is now. That information updates as the learner changes the sim, so they always have a place to go back to that provides a concise description of the state of the sim as a whole, and it's always up to date and accurate. Also notice we had the sound effects and sonification on, so we also heard a looping sound that changes in pitch as the current increases. The sims we have available now with all three of the features I just demoed, the interactive description, sound effects and sonification, and alternative input, are Friction, Gravity Force Lab, Gravity Force Lab Basics, Jantra Voltage, Molarity, Molecules in Light, Ohm's Law, Resistance in a Wire, and we also have a publicly available prototype for a soon-to-be published sim called Ratio and Proportion. Additionally, the simulation Balloons and Static Electricity has interactive description and alternative input, and will soon have sound effects and sonification, but it doesn't have that yet. Faraday's Law has alternative input and sonification, and Coulomb's Law has alternative input. You can find all of our published sims with multimodal features on our website's Sim Filter page, filtering by accessibility feature, and you can find all of our prototypes and published sims with multimodal features at the website fet.colorado.edu/en/accessibility/prototypes. In my second example, I'm going to demo Jantra Voltage with the new self-voicing feature. This is the sim I walked you through at the very beginning of the presentation. Now I'm going to let the sim tell you about itself and what's happening as I interact with it. First, I'm going to listen through different options in the quick access menu.
Read me buttons and speech controls shown. Jantra Voltage is an interactive sim. It changes as you play with it. Looks like John is leaving the house. Facing the door, he strikes a pose on the rug. John has hand close to doorknob, and he is ready to swing his leg to rub his foot on the rug. Swing John's leg to rub his foot on the rug. Self-voicing quick menu hidden.
Now, I'm going to start interacting with John.
Leg swing. Rubbing. A few electrons on body. Rubbing. 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 A large amount of electrons on body. Leg swing. Foot on rug. Arm swing. Hand pointing at upper door. Close to doorknob. Hand close to doorknob. A large amount of electrons discharged with hand just above doorknob.
We have multiple sims being instrumented with this self-voicing feature right now. These include Friction, Jantra Voltage, Gravity Force Lab Basics, and the new Ratio and Proportion. Look for public prototype links in the next month or so, and the regular published versions of these sims to come out with this feature later this year. And now we've made it to my final example, our newest investigations. These new investigations involve the use of object tracking. By developing the capability to use your computer or phone camera to track objects, things that you move, your hands, a piece of paper, any physical object, can become an input mechanism for a sim. If you couple this with the self-voicing feature that I just demonstrated, we now have the ability to have completely screenless emulation experiences. We have a brand new simulation called Ratio and Proportion, built in collaboration with the Embodied Design Research Lab at the University of California, Berkeley. We built this simulation from scratch to be born inclusive. Simultaneously with the design of the visual display, we have created the auditory display and various alternative input mechanisms. If you were to use this simulation like a typical PhET sim, on a tablet device using touch, for example, if you were viewing the screen, you would see two hands that could be moved up and down. As you move the hands up and down, you get feedback, visual and auditory, if you have sound on, when you are near or at a specific ratio of hand heights. For example, a ratio of 1 to 2, where the right hand is twice as high as the left hand. You can change the target, or as we call it in the sim, the challenge ratio, and learners can explore moving the hands and finding heights that correspond with the challenge ratio. Next, you can challenge learners to try to maintain the ratio as they move their hands from low to high on the screen. We've done this with learners across age groups, and it's a wonderful example of embodied mathematics learning, where learners have the opportunity to really feel the 1 to 2 ratio, or any ratio you choose, as they have to figure out how to move one hand twice as fast as another to maintain the ratio during motion. With the computer vision and self-voicing capabilities, learners can experience this sim away from the screen. In this example, we have printed out paper markers that software used with the sim tracks. We attach these paper markers to 2 children's blocks, and now learners can hold the blocks up in front of the camera and move each up and down. This is controlling the hands on the screen in the Sims if you're watching them. But if you're not watching them, you could be looking at a peer or a teacher who's working with you, or just experiencing non-visual access to exploring ratio and proportion. The auditory display provides the information helping you locate and maintain the challenge ratio. As we explore the capabilities of this sim, coupled with self-voicing and object tracking, we got even more creative. One member of our team cut out tracks in a diaper box and put this up in front of a computer camera, creating a cardboard physical vertical slider setup where you move two small handles, similar to baby food pouch lids, up and down to explore ratio with this sim. The paper markers are on the back side of the sliders facing the camera. The learner would sit in front of the cardboard and move the physical handles up and down, individually or with a partner. In another example, the paper markers were attached to two long cardboard strips and set on top of a table. Learners on either side of the table coordinated together how to move the cardboard strips so that the markers were at the challenge ratio heights, and then coordinated together how to get those markers moving while maintaining the challenge ratio. These are just some of the ideas we came up with and are exploring. It's tools like these that we're really excited about for the future of inclusion. We imagine with Sims like ratio and proportion, teachers and learners have a wide variety of options for how to experience the Sim and can have the Sim work for them on many different devices with many different assistive technologies. They can customize the visual and auditory display as they like and can get creative for fun or to address a specific access need for an individual or group to allow effective and enjoyable exploration and learning with the Sims. We found with creative use of existing web technologies and commercial computers and phones, there are so many ways to make truly inclusive learning tools right now. By building these examples and sharing them with the world, we are working to advance screen-optional, flexible, collaborative learning tools that are effective and enjoyable for all teachers and learners who use our Sims, including those with sensory mobility or cognitive disabilities. We believe each learner brings unique gifts to the learning experience, and we want to create tools that enable these gifts to be used and valued in STEM learning, classrooms, and beyond. If you have any questions about what I've shared in this presentation or about PhET in general, please reach out to me. My email is emily.moore@colorado.edu. That's emily.moore@colorado.edu. If you have technical questions or access issues with any Sims, you can let me know or send a message to phethelp@colorado.edu. And that's phethelp@colorado.edu. I'd also like to personally invite you to get involved. Please contact me if you or someone you know would be interested in being a research participant. We have paid research participant opportunities in our ongoing studies. Each opportunity typically takes about 1 to 2 hours in total. It can be done remotely from within and outside the US, and we have opportunities for people from grade 2 up to adults with and without disabilities. I also invite you to join the PhET teacher community, which is now 500,000 teachers strong. You can make a free account on the PhET website, and when you do so, you can opt into subscribing to the teacher email list. Through this list, we send out notifications of new simulations, research opportunities, and occasionally surveys to get your input on new features. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and if you have an interest in doing so, you can donate to PhET through the PhET website. There's a link in the header. We very much appreciate every dollar donated to us and use it to support the making of new Sims and Sim features. And just like that, we've reached the end of my presentation. A few parting notes. Our website is phet.colorado.edu. That's phet@colorado.edu. You can find all of our Sims there. You can find all of our Sims with multimodal features published and prototypes that I talked about today at phet.colorado.edu/en/accessibility. And I'd like to acknowledge the National Science Foundation, the Hewlett Foundation, and the University of Colorado Boulder for their financial support of this work, and the PhET team and our collaborators for contributing their skill and expertise and their time. And I'd like to thank you very much for listening.